like for example, in the Shiksha program, we work only with state governments.
Oh, okay.
All our partnerships are with the state governments. We work with about 11 state governments now.
That's
in
right.
the Shiksha program. See, what I feel very happy about now is a lot of youngsters getting into this space. Today, we are at a place where more than 100 crore income uplift has happened for this group across the country, and there is still a long way to go.
Wow.
That just the cost savings by switching from coal to LPG. And Ayanwala, who spent 3,000 rupees a month on coal, is now spending less than 1,000 rupees a month on LPG. Typically, most HNI funding happens as a general funding to the organization, saying, hey, I love your cause, I trust you guys will do the best job out of these funds. We work in Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra with rural, and in the last 3 years worked with more than 1,000 rural entrepreneurs there. So in fact, giving the money has completely been out of the equation for us, and that's something we've consciously stayed away from. Right, but use very small chunks of capital to either give them assets or to give them specific skill upgrades. In fact, when I got into Udhyam, right, and even now, in fact, it's even after 8 years, there are people who ask me, do you get a salary?
Yes.
You are working in a non-profit, do you get a salary?
Yeah.
I think a lot of this emerges from the core DNA of Udhyam, which is creating impact at national scale. Right?
Isn't it amazing? 100 crore impact with a simple change of moving from coal to LPG. Amazing, impressive. But wait till we hear the details of this particular project from the person who is leading this organization. The thing with this one is, this is our podcast where we have always endeavored to talk to people who are not just creating impact, but are also changing lives. They're uplifting revenues, enabling people to harness their potential, and not just that, but effecting long-lasting change. The Istri Project that we just saw a little bit of, the organization that executed that project is the Udhyam Learning Foundation. And today we have with us the co-founder and director of Udhyam Learning Foundation, Krishnan Ranganathan. Welcome, Krishnan, to the podcast.
Thank you, Ram. Very happy to be here.
Good. So, it's very interesting for me to be here because this is the first time we're shooting so early in the morning. Typically, we are night owls,
Yeah, but I mean, that's a surprise because I would expect you would shoot in the mornings, usually, when you're fresh.
Yeah. No, it's definitely better. I think we should do more of this. But it's great to be in your office. And your office feels like a home. It's like a nice big house where everybody is working together. And I'm glad that everybody eats together also.
It's a deliberate choice we've made and a conscious choice because did not want to be in the formal corporate-ish setups.
Yeah.
And hence, we were lucky to find a place like this, which is more homely, but it can also work. And like you saw, there are spaces for workstations, spaces for meetings, etc.
Correct. If you are in the area, this is in Ulsur in Bengaluru, and you can just visit the Udhyam Learning Foundation. You will see what I'm talking about. It's a nice, lovely house, basically. And people come in, they're working, they're eating together. Everything is so nice, and that reflects in their work because that's the kind of work they're doing. Krishnan, you and I, we go back a long way. We are batchmates from college. We were together in BITS Pilani 98 batch. So 27 years we've known each other. But it's so awesome to see you doing all this stuff. What I would like you to talk about first is how did you get into all this? Because this is not usual. A lot of our batchmates are doing various wonderful things and they're featured on our podcast also. But this is something very unique. Can you tell me how did you go from graduating from Pilani to what are you doing right now?
So post Pilani and MBA, I worked for about 13 years in corporate.
Okay.
And all through that duration, there was this interest in doing something in the education space. And honestly, never had the courage to really drop out of that job and then try something of my own.
Mm-hmm.
But then something changed post those 13 years. At some point, decided that, okay, maybe this is the time I should try experiment.
Wow.
So moved out of my job back in 2017 without clarity on what exactly I was going to do, but knew that it would be something in the education space. And then one thing led to the other, and non-profit happened by chance, I would say, to me. I did not quit the for-profit job wanting to do something in the non-profit space, but then met Mekin at that time, who had just about started Udhyam a few months ago. And I actually joined Udhyam as a volunteer first.
Okay.
And then eventually became a co-founder. So then that's why I call myself as someone who joined the non-profit space by chance, but then have loved this space and stayed with it. So what started as a 2-year experiment back then, touchwood, has lasted about 8+ years now.
And in your case, it's not just about quitting a job. You were in the US. It's the big thing for a lot of people. No, go outside India and set up their lives over there. You quit all that also, right?
I think we were there for about 2.5 years in the US. But for both my wife Deepa and myself, we were very clear we didn't want to settle there in the long run. We wanted to come back to India. And fortunately for me, there was a lot of support from family. Even if there was one moment when my wife had looked into my eyes and asked, "Hey, are you sure you really want to get into a non-profit?" Maybe I would have thought much harder, and I don't know if I would have been in this place. Right? But I think there was never a question about that.
Okay.
I think there was complete support saying, "Okay, you do what you want to do."
That's brilliant. And this, the desire to make change, let's just say, or have an impact, was it always there while you were working in corporate, or is something that you discovered after meeting Mekin?
I would say it was there because the interest in education came from that angle,
okay,
right? Which I realized much later after Udhyam happened. But then I was able to connect the dots, right? And my very specific interest in education was to do something in math, start my own tutorial in math, because I always felt that math was not taught the right way in school,
really?
Which again I realized post-school when I was in college.
What grade did you make in advanced calculus?
Don't ask me that. It's out of syllabus for this conversation.
Tell me you made a C or a D.
Only a D.
D? So math was not taught properly in school.
No, I think the way I realized math was not taught properly was I scored 100 on 100 in 10th grade.
Right.
In school.
Yeah.
Right? And then when I was in college is when I suddenly realized there is so much more logic to math than just numbers.
Right.
There is actually a lot of logic behind various aspects of simple mathematics. Right. And then I felt like, okay, I didn't know this when I was in school. Then how did the system give me 100 on 100?
Yeah. Correct. That happens to a lot of us. Even me, for example, when you get into college first year, you have this course called advanced calculus. I don't know what it's called now. Maybe it's called something else. But that is when you realize that, oh my God, I didn't really know much before coming here. But so that was a trigger, so to speak, that education has to be...
This should be taught differently, and hence I want to contribute in that space. So, and then later I was able to connect the dots that, okay, I wanted to do something where people could learn better.
Right. So what was the volunteer thing that you started with? Do you remember exactly what project you got into with Mekin? Mekin Maheshwari is the founder of Udhyam Learning Foundation. So that's the person who motivated you to get into the volunteer side of things, right?
Yeah. So in fact, when I first started volunteering here, Udhyam Shiksha was already operational, and we were just about to start Vyapar, which is the nano entrepreneurship space. And I started volunteering with that. So that was my first few steps at Udhyam.
Okay.
But then later, a year down the line, when I was full-time, moved to running Shiksha. And so ran Shiksha for about 3 years and was looking at data much deeper into Shiksha for a year. And then now again back to my old place where I'm running Vyapar for the last 3 years.
Okay. Very interesting stuff. So let's dive a little deeper into this. How is ULF or Udhyam Learning Foundation structured? You talk about Shiksha, Vyapar. Can you give us a brief idea of how is the organization structured? What are you focusing on and things like that?
Yeah, I think before jumping into the structure, like you said, Udhyam is entirely Mekin's brainchild.
Right.
It originated from there. Right? And the thought process was, how do we provide real world experiences and real world experiential learning to people at a younger age? And this came a lot more from our own reflections of how have we learned over time. Right? How much of textbook knowledge do we use versus how much of knowledge skills do we use which we've learned from the real world or from our experiences in the real world. And unfortunately, a lot of these experiences happen after we start work. Right. And which is when we are like 21, 22.
Yeah.
Now, how can you trigger this off at the age of 14? So that was a thought process in starting Udhyam.
Yeah.
Right? And I think when I joined as well, this was something that I could connect with very, very closely. Basis my own experience and background.
Correct.
So, and that was one of the core reasons for getting in as well. Now coming into how we are structured.
Yeah.
So Udhyam is registered as a Section 8 non-profit.
Okay.
And
what does that mean?
So Section 8 non-profits, again, we have an ATG registration, which means donations to the non-profit are eligible for tax exemptions.
Okay.
Now again, there are more intricate rules around that. I'll not get into those
Okay.
details. And again, there is a myth that non-profits cannot charge money. Right? While Udhyam does not take a single rupee from any of our customers, whether it is students or entrepreneurs, but it's not. It is allowed by law.
Okay.
Right? But there is a myth that it is not allowed. Okay. I think what is not allowed for a non-profit is for the equity holders to take back money.
Okay.
Which is allowed in a for-profit.
Correct.
Right? So
you sell your stake, make some money, and bring somebody else, and that kind of stuff
generates profits.
Yeah.
That has to be reinvested in the organization. Wow. Cannot be taken out.
Okay.
And I think there are limitations to around how much profit can be generated. You're not allowed to generate beyond a certain amount of profit. So that's what the whole non-profit.
Okay. So non-profit NGO is an interchangeable term, or do you think it's the same?
Not completely. Like I said, there are other non-profits which are not necessarily NGOs, like schools. Trusts, etc.
Yeah. All schools are supposed to be non-profit, right?
Yeah. I will not get into that.
Of course, don't worry about it. Yeah. So then coming to Udhyam as a non-profit, I mean, it still is an organization. It is still as people working. So how do you structure it, and what are your focus areas?
Yeah. So we run two types of programs in Udhyam. One is the Udhyam Shiksha program, which works with 14 plus age group among youth.
Okay.
14 to 18.
So 7th, 8th grade onwards.
9th grade onwards.
9th grade, high school. Yeah.
And the intention is to build entrepreneurial mindsets in youth.
Okay.
Again, the intention is not to convert every individual into an entrepreneur.
Sure.
But can we make every individual more enterprising in behavior?
Right.
Or more entrepreneurial in behavior? Because again, from our own experience, we know that increases your chances of economic success.
And that's your core area of education, as what you talked about earlier, what motivated you. So Shiksha is education.
Yeah.
Then the next block is Vyapar.
Yeah. The other area of work is Udhyam Vyapar, which works with nano entrepreneurs.
Okay.
Now, typically, these are mostly street vendors in the urban areas.
Right.
And there are a variety of rural entrepreneurs that we work with as well.
Okay.
The intention there is, how do we improve income levels of these nano entrepreneurs and how do we improve their lives?
Is there a revenue cutoff for nano entrepreneurs, or like somebody who doesn't need to have a GST with less than 20 lakh rupee revenue every year, that kind of thing?
Yeah. So unfortunately in India, there is no definition. There's no formal definition of a nano entrepreneur.
Right.
The definition ends at micro.
Correct.
And even that definition says that micro entrepreneurs are those where the investment is anything less than 1 crore and revenues are less than 5 crores. I think of late the government is also changing those definitions. Right. Making those slabs even higher.
Yeah.
But what about entrepreneurs who are earning, let's say, 10 lakh lakhs a year.
Yeah, because there's so many different things that are done for MSMEs or micro and small medium-sized enterprises, and lots of regulation, lots of finance available, etc. But the people who are smaller than a micro, I don't think there is much that we know of. Probably there's a lot happening. Maybe today we'll uncover some of these things, right?
Absolutely. The context and persona of that segment is very, very different from the micro entrepreneurs who are maybe at the top end of the spectrum of the micro definition, right? And hence, in fact, something that I want to champion for is that can we create a definition for an entrepreneur, which is formally true across the country. Right now, the informal or a thumb rule that Udhyam uses for this is anybody earning less than 30,000 rupees a month. Any entrepreneur earning less than 30,000 rupees a month and from the lesser privileged spaces.
Right. Okay.
And again, this comes from the fact that there is research that's available which says today in India, if somebody is earning more than 30,000 rupees a month, you are already in the top 10% of income earners in the country.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
So the whole thought process is how do you serve the other 90%?
That's right. Wow. So, Shiksha, Vyapar, is there anything else to Udhyam Learning Foundation?
These are the two major things.
Things.
These are the two main.
Okay. And the finance, etc., happens under Vyapar?
That's a separate
organization.
It's a separate organization. So, Udhyam Financial Services is a separate organization. It's an NBFC.
Oh, okay.
That's been set up.
You got an NBFC license, etc.?
Yeah, we have an NBFC license.
Okay.
That organization is run independently.
Are you involved with the finance part?
I am not.
You're not involved. So, you're primarily focused on Shiksha and Vyapar?
Shiksha and Vyapar.
Okay. How big is the organization now?
So we are about 200 plus people now and spread across maybe 12, 13 states across the country. About 30, 40 of us are in Bangalore, but the rest of the group is outside.
And major work happens in the big cities, like your presence in Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, Kolkata, like that? Or it's like people who are on the field and moving around depending on the project? I
think both. There are people, like for example, in the Shiksha program, we work only with state governments.
Oh, okay.
All our partnerships are with the state governments. We work with about 11 state governments now
the
Shiksha program. And in each state, we have a core team which is centrally located, most likely in the capital of the state. But there are also district coordinators who are present in various districts to observe what's happening in the schools.
Okay.
Because that gives us feedback.
Right.
In terms of what is the quality of the program that's being delivered in the schools, etc.
Okay.
In the Vyapar program, again, similarly, where we work in urban, we are present in the cities. Our teams are present in the cities.
Okay.
When we work in rural, our teams are present in the typical remote rural areas as well.
And these are people who are full-time employed with Udhyam Learning Foundation?
Most of them are.
Okay.
Yeah, most of them are full-time employed. There are a few part-time employees as well, but very
depending on the volume of work you get. Okay. So this is actually a career then for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what kind of people work with you? Like, are they fresh out of college or they have some experience? If you can talk a little bit about the structure, I mean, the way your organization is. Are you the oldest in the company?
No, I am not.
Do you look the oldest?
Probably. Possibly. So the oldest in the company is actually 60.
Oh, wow.
There's someone who's 60.
Okay.
Youngest is 18.
Wow.
Right, so that's
just out of high school or something.
Wide range that we have. Possibly an intern.
Right.
18. But 2022, we have people who are full-time working with us.
Hmm.
The average age of the organization right now is about 33. Across 200 plus people.
Right.
And we have people from fresh graduates whom we hire post fellowship. There are a bunch of good fellowships now happening in the non-profit sector, so we hire from there. There are folks from corporate who spent a lot of years in corporate, had stellar careers there, then come and joined us. Like there are people like Ramesh, who runs technology, who's been here for more than 6 years now. There is Akshay, there is Hima, who you met, and there is Priya. So, myself, I'm from corporate.
Right.
Nitin is from corporate. So, bunch of such people who've been here and been here in the long run. Then there are people who are from the social sector.
Yeah.
There is Payal, Harish, who run large mandates in Udhyam Shiksha. Payal runs curriculum, Harish runs a lot of operations. For us, again, these are people with long social sector careers prior to Udhyam. Have been here again, stayed here for been more than 5-6 years in Udhyam.
Wow.
Right now.
It's a very different bent of mind they would have probably, right?
Yeah, so wide variety of people who come in. I think what I feel very happy about now is a lot of youngsters getting into this space, which I couldn't have imagined when you and I started work. Like us telling our parents that, okay, I'm going to work for a non-profit or an NGO.
But when we graduated, we would have taken any job. There were no jobs at that point, remember? 2002. If somebody was paying 5,000 rupees, you would have done the work.
And how long would you have stayed with it?
That is true. That is true. So you see that changing significantly in the current generation, where they are a lot more welcoming to the idea of working for an organization like Udhyam?
I think the awareness about non-profits has changed over the last few years. Like 8 years back when I got into the space, how things were, and now I feel that it's evolved significantly. So I see a lot of young people being aware of non-profits, also being more service oriented. Right? That, okay, I want to give back to society.
Correct.
And in terms of salaries, at least the early starting salaries for them are comparable to an Infosys or a TCS salary today in a non-profit. Right?
Sure.
It may not be comparable to the plush startup salaries.
Sure.
Or some
we wonder about that too these days, who knows?
Right?
But
anyway. So I think from a fresh graduate standpoint, it has become exciting to be part of non-profits.
And it's a very interesting first job to be taken, right? It gives you a whole different purpose. I think the skills required are still the same. You still probably have data-related skills or tech-related skills or something to do with language or what have you. Something that puts an organization together, whether it's a company or a non-profit. But the purpose of a non-profit is a lot higher, if we can say that, and people might be driven for that, right?
Absolutely. See, and one is at an entry-level stage, we aren't looking for too many skills. Right? We are more looking at attitude.
Right.
That, okay, is this person willing to learn and figure out things and pick up the skills? And I think which is true for corporates as well.
Correct.
People with hardly any work the skills they come with. I think what's also been very fulfilling for us is what people have gone on to do after Udhyam. Like, for example, a bunch of people, at least 3 Harvard graduates post Udhyam.
Wow.
There is someone who's with McKinsey now in the US. There is someone who's been at Kellogg Business School. So, bunch of things. There are at least about 10 people who are now active entrepreneurs after Udhyam.
Right.
And Udhyam hasn't been there for too long. We are an 8.5-year-old organization.
Right.
But there are 10 entrepreneurs post Udhyam from our ex-employees.
Wow, that's brilliant. I think it's a great experience to be shown on your CV when you're trying to distinguish yourself from other applicants wherever you're going, right? Now, let's talk about your work, though. I mean, I understand that, and you said that you worked with the governments also. I mean, typically when you say an NGO, it means that it is something that is working outside the regular system. But that is not really the case. But let's sort of get into the details of this, like the thing with how does a project happen? One is setting up an NGO, which is okay. It comes from a deep sense of societal improvement, or maybe like in your case, you wanted to change the way education is done in India. Sure, you start from that as a purpose, but then the organization gets formed, and then you actually start doing work. Now, every project that you take up has a beginning, has a middle, has probably an end to it, or it's an ongoing standard process that you form. How does that happen? If you could take a couple of examples or whatever, whichever way you want to explain that, but I would like to really understand, how does work happen?
Yeah, so maybe I'll take the example of the Istri Project, which is the project that works with ironing vendors or street vendors who do ironing for a living.
It's okay to call them presswalas?
Like we usually say presswala. Again, a commonly used term.
Yeah.
So back when we started the project in 2018-19, this came up as more of I think where it originated from was empathy for the street vendor. So when our people were talking to street vendors, especially the ironing street vendors, we found that about 25% of their time every day was just going and preparing to work.
Just heating up the coal and all that.
Heating up the coal in the morning, then afternoon you take a break for lunch and come back, you heat the next set of coal and then start ironing. So almost 2 hours a day is gone and preparing to work. This is like us using our laptops for work and
waiting for it to boot
for an hour in the morning and an hour after lunch. Right? And doing this every single day. Every single day over the last 100+ years.
Wow.
That's the amount of productivity loss. So And I feel this was a classic example of something that we learn in B school in terms of cutting non-value added time, being applied in the real world, and then that really picking up and taking shape into a large movement. Right? Like today, we are at a place where more than 100 crore income uplift has happened for this group across the country, and there is still a long way to go.
Wow, 100 crores. And over what period was this?
This has been over the last 6 years, I would say. So the beginnings of the Istri Project happened there when we've identified, okay, this is the problem and this could be a potential solution because electric. So basically, the solution is that you replace a coal iron box with an LPG powered iron box. Right. Now, we did not invent the LPG powered iron box. It was already there in the market. Right. We only had to do the research and find that there is something like this that exists. People don't know of, or people aren't brave enough to try because that's investment for them. Right. So that's how it started. Electric was not an option on the streets. You cannot use an electric iron box. Unfortunately, nobody's figured out a solar powered iron box. That would be the best fit in this case. So
because the places where they generally are set up, it's not necessary that they would have an electric point to just plug in an electric iron, right?
Yeah, there's no electric point on the streets for them to have access to. Right. So all this was the first phase, identifying the solution. Right. And then once you identify the solution, prototype, pilot it with a few. So we gave 4 people, then we made it 20 people. And the first 20 people after a month did not want to move back to coal. They said, no, we want to use only the LPG box.
Right.
That gave us the confidence that, yes, here's the product market fit. 100% of the people don't want to move back. Nobody wants to move back.
Where was this?
This was in Bangalore. Bangalore in Indiranagar. Most of them were in Indiranagar area because our office was there at that point. So the prototype and piloting was done in that area. Then came the question of, okay, this solution is working beautifully and there is income increase. Now, how do we scale this? Because India has, there is no official estimate, but our guesstimate now, basis our surveys, is about 100,000 Istriwalas easily across India. Right. So now, how do we scale this solution so that a lot more people can benefit? So that was the next phase.
Right.
And unfortunately, COVID hit at that time. So for a year, there wasn't much progress. But then we started the scale journey of this project, and up to now, it's about 8,500 Istriwalas impacted. So coming back to your question, these are the various phases an initiative can go through.
So you identify a problem, somehow it comes to you. Either it's yourself or somebody brings that problem to you, like, okay, look, here's a situation which needs a solution. And the solution is right in front of you. Now let's just make it happen. The big thing there is funding. How do you, because you're not the ones who are making those LPG connects, what do you call them? LPG systems, iron boxes. So you need to source it from someone who has to be given an order. That person will need an advance to start manufacturing it. So how does this whole thing come about?
So there is funding needed for a couple of aspects of this, or 3 aspects of this, I would say overall. One is our own operations for our people on the ground to pay their salaries, etc. And second is we run a subsidy model with the Istriwalas. So we provide a 50% subsidy and 50% is paid by them. So that they also have a skin in the game.
Right. If it's for free, they won't value it possibly. Is that the case?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons. And the third is for us to talk about it to the outside world. So some advocacy, marketing expenses. So these are the 3 main areas where funding is required for us. And the funding is sourced through 2-3 different channels. Right? One is, and again, as a non-profit, there are multiple channels you can source funding from. One is CSR, which the government mandates beyond a certain level of performance in corporates. CSR is mandatory. So one is we source CSR from organizations. Second is there are HNIs that contribute to our work, high net worth individuals who are connected with the cause and want to contribute. And third is foreign foundations, right? So, and for which again you need an FCRA license as a non-profit to source money from foreign foundations. So these are 3 broad sources from which we try and secure funding for various projects, not just for the Istri project, right? So we go through that cycle. Once we plan saying, acha, next yahan pe launch karna hai, these geographic locations is what we want to focus on. Then we try and secure funding for those locations and then get the project started in those locations.
Okay. So then your funding is general or is it project specific? Like, do you go around asking people for money overall for Udhyam, or say, hey, we are starting this new project and we need, let's say, 1 crore rupees for this now? How many of you can pause? I mean, how does that work? Or is
it
it
happens
both?
both ways. It happens both ways. So typically, most HNI funding happens as a general funding to the organization, saying, "Hey, I love your cause. I trust you guys will do the best job out of these funds. So here's a pool of money from as my contribution. You can. It's flexible for you to use it where you want to use. So that's the HNI funding pool. The CSR and foundations are usually project specific.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I remember we had done a podcast with Satwa Consulting Fellows. You know them, right? I mean, Krishna, Arti, and Ratish. And they were talking about how a lot of companies, I mean, they are mandated to put 2% of their profit into CSR, but they're not necessarily sure as to how to go about it. And a lot of funding happens in the last week of March just to meet the requirement, probably. Do you see that happen? And do you work with Satwa kind of companies to sort of get the CSR action going for yourselves?
We do once in a while. Like, for example, I think Satwa has also recently launched this Fund Assist platform, which actually tries to connect non-profits with potential sources of funding. But again, there is a lot more. It's a great initiative to at least support both sides, right? Non-profits and the CSRs. But there is just so much CSR happening across the country. So there are 25,000 organizations in India doing CSR.
Yeah.
Right. And this is probably just a small bit of the connections.
Correct.
So I feel we need a lot more people like this or organizations like this who are working in this space to connect the ecosystem.
Correct. So let's talk about the Istri Project a little more. The thing with the iron box, I saw it. It's a very simple idea, come to think of it, right? I mean, you're replacing coal with LPG. The LPG is connected through a pipe, and there is a cylinder like we see, a normal 5 kg cylinder that they're using.
5 kg.
Now, how much does that setup cost?
So the cylinder costs about 700 rupees.
Okay. Which is a monthly thing. But the iron box
itself? The iron box, there are two variants, right? And this we learned basis our experience. So first, when we did this in Bangalore and Chennai, it was a brass base, iron box with a brass base.
Right.
And that cost about 6,000 rupees per box. Now, when we went to the north, when we went to places like Jaipur and Delhi, we saw that almost nobody was using a brass base. They were using a cast iron base box. And that costs half the price. So it costs about 2,800, 3,000 rupees. So these two variants of boxes, and hence the costing changes accordingly for our projects.
So about 3,000 rupees for one iron box?
Yeah.
And you fund 1,500 of that, and the presswala puts in 1,500 of his or her own.
So the CSR or funding partner funds 1,500, presswala puts in.
And how many such boxes have you already installed or given out so far?
I think directly we've done about 5,500, 6,000, and about a couple of 2,000-3,000 has also been indirect impact, because what we do is once we convert more than 1,000 Istri Walas in a city, we exit and allow the market to take over.
Okay.
Because by then we've connected the ecosystem, the retailers are already active. When we enter a new city, no retailer is stocking a gas iron box.
Right.
But after 1,000 boxes, now we have retailers who are stocking the box. We have Vyaparis who are aware, Istri Walas who are aware such a box exists. So then we track movement at the retailer level every month. And we have interesting data from Bangalore and Chennai, which showed that when we tracked data for 1 year, the sale of gas iron boxes was actually higher than both electric and coal boxes after we exited from Bangalore and Chennai.
Wow.
So which also puts money to better use, because then we can use the remaining money for a new city.
Yes. So let's just say, for example, 3,000 per iron box, and you put in 5,000 of those. So that's how much? 1.5 crores spent, right? That amount of money has generated 100 crores of uplift of revenue. Would that be right thing to say?
It approximately be a little higher than that, because again it includes
other costs. Sure, exactly. Let's just say double it for that matter.
So I would say we've spent about, because there are brass boxes as well, which cost higher. So I think we've spent about 8.5 crores in the last 6 years, because the first 1 or 2 years piloting cost is much higher.
The impact is 10x for the people, because they're saving money on the coal, they're saving money on the amount of time they're taking, right? I mean,
they're ironing more clothes.
Their throughput is much larger.
So people who are ironing 100 clothes a day are now ironing 130 clothes a day.
Brilliant. That just basically increase of 30% revenue on a daily basis.
And
Wow.
Azim Premji University had done a third-party evaluation on this
Okay.
a couple of years back, and
Sure.
then they came up with the result saying there is 27% average income increase.
Brilliant.
For this.
So absolutely fine for people to start using it. So if anybody wants to get involved, they can always get in touch with Udhyam Learning Foundation. All right. So you've been doing this for a few years now. Are there any learning that you picked up which is now helping you improve the whole model itself and taking it to another level now?
Absolutely. So one thing that we've observed over the years is every time somebody buys a iron box, they need to purchase a cylinder and then refill the gas cylinder at regular intervals. Right. So we've found a lot of interest in petroleum companies like a BPCL or an IOCL to actually take up this project, take up this initiative. Which is also very useful to us because when we want to scale this pan-India, it's hard for Udhyam to be present everywhere to scale this. Right now we've scaled this in 4 or 5 cities. Right. So how do we scale this pan-India much faster? And that's the new model we have just piloted in Madurai, which in fact this week we've gotten the results from Madurai, where without any Udhyam employees present in Madurai, 50 ironwalas have converted from coal to LPG in the last 1 month.
Brilliant.
Right? And this is without any presence of any Udhyam employee, which means it cuts down our costs significantly. And the entire show has been run by a gas agency in Madurai.
Wow. Oh, so they directly saw the potential of the idea and they just say, let us do this.
Yeah, and we were the knowledge partner. So we gave them the knowledge, we connected with the manufacturers, etc. Now, this model can now be replicated across the country because gas agencies are available at scale.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere in the country.
Yeah, everywhere.
And not just cities. They must be there in rural areas also.
Well, yeah.
Which brings me to the point, like this problem, the Istri wala problem, seems like a very urban phenomenon. Or at least for us, because we live in cities and we see it in front of us. So we are able to say, oh yeah, this is something that somebody should solve. Now, what about areas which are rural, which we are not necessarily seeing on a daily basis? How do you go about addressing rural problems? I mean, street vendors there too must be having some of the other problems, right? And maybe at a much smaller financial investment could lead to a much larger impact there. How do you deal with rural issues?
So we work in Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra with rural, and in the last 3 years worked with more than 1,000 rural entrepreneurs there. And again, a variety of business segments that come in there, starting from a large bunch of them are tailors. Right? If you go into any village in India, you will find a lot of tailors.
Yes.
And these are women entrepreneurs I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So, and then there is food. There are people running small food businesses. There are people running fancy item stores or carts where you have a lot of women fancy items, etc. selling. Then there are the bag print, batik print kind of artisan work. Right? So different types. We work with about in kirana stores, etc. So at least 10, 12 types of businesses. What's been amazing to see is specific solutions catering to the need of the context of that particular individual have worked.
Okay.
Simple interventions like which cost 2,000, 3,000 rupees. Right? For example, beauticians in remote rural villages being given a hair curler, right, increases the scope of services they can provide, and that has increased income. Right?
Okay.
Beauticians who are given specific makeup kits increases their scope of services.
Right.
Fishermen who were buying fish and selling fish in the market by giving them fishing nets to fish for themselves has increased their income 3 times.
Wow,
They're
3 times.
They're earning 3 times more than earlier. Fishermen who were who were scared to stock fish because fish will go stale in a couple of days. By giving them ice boxes for storage of fish, are now able to stock more fish, hence sell more fish during the day, and again income is doubled.
Wow!
Right? So different types of businesses, and so these are specific examples where small asset interventions have helped. Then there are examples like tailors and food vendors, where interventions like market connects, like how do you provide better market connects to the local market or to the regional market? How do you provide connects to suppliers who can supply to them at lower costs? These solutions have helped.
Wow. So instead of just giving them money, you're actually giving them a mechanism to increase their business.
Absolutely. So in fact, giving the money has completely been out of the equation for us, and that's something we've consciously stayed away from. Right. But use very small chunks of capital to either give them assets or to give them specific skill upgrades. Or specific upgrades in terms of how they run their business.
Wow. So, for example, that fish thing that you talked about, how much would be an ice box?
Ice box is like 700-800 rupees.
That's it.
A fishing net is about 4,500 rupees.
That's it. And that just doubles, triples their income.
Yeah. And we've also now done gas iron boxes in rural.
Oh, okay.
Right? And that was an experiment for us because we don't know whether rural has demand for ironing clothes.
Yeah.
So instead of 100 clothes, would they really iron 130 clothes in a day? We don't know. So we were testing it out. But interestingly, what we found is that just the cost savings by switching from coal to LPG. And Ayanwala, who spent 3,000 rupees a month on coal, is now spending less than 1,000 rupees a month on LPG.
Wow.
Which means you're earning 2,000 rupees additionally. And for somebody earning like 8,000-10,000 rupees a month, an additional 2,000 rupees is like very welcome income for them.
Of course, absolutely. I mean, it's literally the proverb that is, I think it's a Chinese proverb, right? Don't give them fish, teach them how to fish. That's pretty much what is happening here. So tailors, fishermen, cooks or people who are running food stalls, small kirana shops, small general hosiery items and things like that. Those weekly markets that happen in rural areas, those kind of places where... So how do you approach these guys? I mean, how does it happen? Is there a person who goes to these things and sees, okay, you know what, we have this solution for you? And how is the reception?
So we have our field staff whom we usually hire from the local village or block, right, where we want to operate. So that's something that we ensure because that person knows the context.
Familiarity is there. Language is a big thing.
And these one field staff usually covers about 30 to 40 kilometers radius around where they live. And then we have supervisors who are located in the nearest town center or the city center, which is closest to that village. Right. So that's how we get access. And these field staff also get help from the panchayat and local governing bodies.
Right.
Because now many of those governing bodies have seen the impact of our work. So now they are very forthcoming to help us saying, Acha, agla next 50 entrepreneur ke liye we'll tell you who are the next 50, 100 you can work with.
Very nice. They see value in that because if they get associated with this, I mean, their name also becomes better. I mean, that's what a politician probably wants ultimately, right?
Absolutely.
At a rural level, like a sarpanch wants to be a sarpanch.
So a lot of sarpanches, in fact, there are places where they've given their office space to us, saying, "Yeah,
very nice.
Apne office ke liye use kar do. If you want to have meetings and all, you can come and have meetings."
And I think they probably are waiting for someone like you guys to come over and help them with some of these issues, right?
Absolutely. I think and we have seen this shift, especially after our first 1 year of work in rural. I think from the second year onwards, the support has tremendously increased from the ecosystem there.
Yeah. You know, Krishnan, very interesting stuff that you talked about in terms of how you pick things, how you go about, looking at issues and solving them and then scaling them. But it also means that you have to have some kind of an outcome focus. And a corollary to that is, if certain outcomes are not happening, do you drop projects so that you make room for something else? The same money could be utilized somewhere else. Has that ever happened?
Absolutely. It's happened as recent as like 9 months back. So we were working with food street vendors in Bangalore. And something that me and the team were very excited about is that Swiggy and Zomato are available at scale across the country, but usually have only the large and medium restaurants attached to them. Right. So we wanted the street vendors, the food street vendors, to also benefit from this, so that they can acquire new customers through Swiggy and Zomato. So for about a year and a half, we actually tried attaching street vendors to both online platforms, mostly Zomato. But then, eventually we figured that this is not working out. They're not making money out of it.
Why is that? Because they were not getting enough orders, or?
One is there is a lot of money lost in commissions, right? So somebody who sold for 5,000 finally gets 2,000 or 3,000 in their account. But the other is also they find it very hard to troubleshoot. Because they speak in the local language, but your partner service center in Zomato will speak in English. So we always had to play that intermediary role, which means that's not scalable for us in the long run. Finally, scalability is important for us for any solution. Right? So we actually had to drop that project and switch focus to building offline solutions for food street vendors.
So then when you pick any project, you have a certain outcome in mind that, okay, in a couple of months, I should see something like this happen. Is that there? That
Absolutely.
sort of a mindset?
So with all our nano entrepreneur projects, income uplift is the primary outcome goal.
Right.
For us. So if income uplift is not happening, then either you find other ways of achieving the income uplift. It's still not happening, you'll have to shut the project.
Yeah, correct. I mean, in the Shiksha side, it's easier because you see students getting evaluated anyway in the school. So you see the impact of those programs. In Vyapar, it would be more the business metrics.
Shiksha side is actually tougher.
Really?
Because we work on entrepreneurial mindsets. It's very hard to measure mindsets.
Correct.
Right? How do you know somebody's confidence has gone up? Right? So that we found it very hard, but we use globally available or acceptable tools like psychometric tools to monitor the baseline before the program and endline after the program. And then there are some other hard indicators, tangible indicators, like some students actually becoming entrepreneurs after the program because they become more enterprising.
Right.
And then their business is growing. Like there are 19-year-olds now running a business of 1.5 crores.
Wow.
In Delhi. Right. So there are some great success stories like that. But Shiksha actually net is much harder to measure outcomes.
But then also it must be happening inside the organization when somebody is really attached to a cause. And then you have to go and tell them, you know what, we're stopping this project. Or is there people are tuned to now understanding that, look, while we are attached to a cause and we feel very strongly about it, the numbers also matter?
It's a very, very, very hard thing for them to digest. Right? Because everybody who is connected with the project is emotionally attached to it.
Yes.
They have been meeting many of these entrepreneurs day after day. They have a close rapport with these entrepreneurs. And then they've not been able to achieve results. So they're already disappointed with that. Right? And now taking a big decision of, no, we'll have to stop this project and maybe divert attention to something else. It goes through the change management process for them internally as well. As much as externally for the organization. But there is internal time also that needs to be given.
That's where the organization culture comes in to save the day for you guys.
Absolutely, yeah.
So what would you say is the potential in India? Like if we were to look at, I think number of districts is 768 or something around that is the number of districts, I would say. Less than 1,000 if I remember correctly. We'll check that. Number of villages or taluka places even higher. I think 19,000 pin codes we're talking about overall in the country. Say 15,000 are accessible pin codes. How far deep are our problems and how far have you guys reached, or other NGO, the whole non-profit sector? How much more needs to be done?
It's a very overwhelming question because the answer is also overwhelming.
Right.
So a lot more needs to be done. Right? A lot more needs to be done. The non-profits operate at different levels of scale.
Yeah.
Right? There are non-profits which operate in a specific community, saying, "मैं इस community में, इस geography में काम करूँगा, and I will work here for 10 years, 20 years, and improve this to like 3 levels higher." Right? There are non-profits that operate at slightly higher geographical scope. Now, Udhyam's mission is we want to operate at a national level scale. Right? And there is a lot of scope in different pockets. There are a bunch of organizations doing amazing work in different states. So one is, I don't think there is even a repository of all the great work happening in all the spaces.
Yeah, that's another thing. These stories don't come out, right? Yeah. Anyway.
But your question, a lot needs to be done. And I think the numbers talk. So if you look at income levels, comparison between rural, urban,
correct,
the numbers speak for themselves.
And think of it this way, you gave out 5,000 iron boxes. That's still solving only 5% of the problem.
5% of the problem.
Yeah.
And in urban slums are again areas of focus for many organizations. So there is a lot of good stuff happening around. I don't think even we know, even Udhyam doesn't know like more than 10% of what's happening around.
I think a lot more people need to get involved, I suppose, and full time at that. But a lot of people don't necessarily know enough. And maybe we should address those things also, because there is a lot of misconceptions or lack of information about how non-profits work. When first is the government aspect. By definition, non-government means they are working outside or without the government. Then it's like non-profit means, you have to be a Jholaawaala. You don't have to care for money, for example, no salary. So some of these things need to be told to people that, that is not the case.
I think that's a brilliant question. It's a brilliant point you brought up. So in fact, when I got into Udhyam, right, and even now, in fact, it's even after 8 years, there are people who ask me, "Do you get a salary?
Yes.
You are working in a non-profit. Do you get a salary?"
Yeah.
Right, and then I have to explain to them saying, "Yes, we do get a salary." And yeah, you use the right term, Jholaawaala. Right?
Yeah.
That's the traditional
Yes.
visual image that one had about what working in an NGO means.
Yeah.
Today, that has changed significantly.
Right.
Significantly, and internally, if you see, a lot of non-profits today operate like corporates. Like they have their goals, they have their systems in place, they have their people processes. There is technology, there is AI being brought in. Right, so there is a lot of corporatish internal systems. I think, but I think the game changer is empathy. Finally, the intention is okay. How can you do something for humanity? Right. So the outcome focus is that, but the internal systems. I think a lot of non-profits are also now moving the corporate direction in terms of how do we strengthen some of these things.
So it's like working in any other organization, practically.
Internally, I would say yes. Of course, there are differentiators between different organizations. Like in Udhyam, one of the differentiators for us from the beginning, and which, thanks to Mekin's push, has been culture.
Yeah.
Right. So how do we differentiate our culture, and how do we build it in a manner that is more people friendly and more people centric?
So give me an example of that. What kind of a culture are you talking about?
So, for example, from the first year of Udhyam until today, so from the time Udhyam was 5 to 10 people to now 200 plus people, we run a monthly all hands.
Okay.
Where the entire organization comes together.
Nice.
And the leadership shares updates in terms of this is what's happened in the last month. And the last half an hour of the all hands is dedicated for a Q&A where anybody from anywhere can ask questions to the leadership.
Sure.
So basically it's a space for the organization, for people to hold the leadership accountable. And there are times when there are difficult questions asked, when we are put on a spot, and we also make this an anonymous forum, so you can actually ask questions anonymously without us knowing who is asking the question.
Okay. So what was been the most difficult question you had to face? Can you share some interesting
question I had to face? This is one of the most difficult questions in this interview. But let me think. Okay, you'll have to edit the thinking time.
No, it's okay. There are so many that you're choosing one.
I think this happened when I was running Shiksha, right? And in one of the all hands, there was a question, very direct, which said, "I think the Shiksha leader is very biased towards certain people.
Ooh.
Why do only the specific people get bigger opportunities and others don't get? I think the Shiksha leader is very..." So it was directed directly at me, right, in the question. Yeah, so that was a difficult moment to handle.
So that's true of most leaders in corporate also, right? They have to deal with this. So you also are dealing with something like that. So I mean, because people would also like growth, and even if I have joined, say, if I've joined Udhyam, I still want to see myself growing in my role. Because if I'm doing the same thing that I did when I was 23 at 33, then I've not really grown. So it's natural for people to aspire for larger things within the same setup, right? They might want to become people managers, or they might want to take on larger impact projects, or they might want things that give them more exposure. So is your culture enabling all of these things?
Yeah, so there are people like Cyril or a Sahaj who joined us at the junior most level, and now grown to become senior managers, principal consultants, right, in the organization, done and well-deserved growth, because done a lot of good impactful work in between over the years. There are we have consciously kept the number of hierarchy levels lower, so that we don't become too hierarchical in organization. Right. So if you see in the typical meaning of the word promotion, right, where you move from one level to another, that's not too many, because the number of hierarchy levels are low.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
So flattish
in terms
organization.
of responsibility growth, role growth, salary growth, that there is a journey that people definitely see.
So what do you look for in your team members? So when you see such kind of work happening, how do you look at somebody and say, yeah, this person is now ready for taking the next leap, or like give them much larger responsibility? Whatever way you define the responsibility. What do you look for in people?
I think it's combination of both mindsets, competencies that they bring to the table and they have shown in action. And then, of course, an important gate is also results. Right? Like, have they shown results, especially for senior levels? Like at the junior levels, I think inputs matter a lot more. Like, are you giving your best? Are you improving learning, etc.? But as you go to senior levels, outputs and results also matter a lot.
So you also have performance appraisal?
Absolutely, yeah.
That is not escaping people in
and we have an annual performance appraisal. We used to do it 6 monthly in the first 3-4 years of Udhyam. When we were in the startup phase, we used to do a 6 monthly, because again the thought process was that if someone is doing really well, we don't want to wait too long to give them a raise.
Yeah, because what happens in the annual thing is the recency effect. I used to call it a recency effect. So if you are evaluating people in, let's say, March, the work they did from December, Jan, Feb gets valued or evaluated rather, more than something that they did in April, May, June quarter. Doesn't that happen with the annual appraisal cycle?
Sorry, I didn't get the question.
So if you are doing performance appraisal once a year, then let's say you're doing it in March. I mean, assuming year ending March. So you are more likely to focus on the work people did in Jan, Feb or December, Jan, Feb, the last 2-3 months, which is the recency effect is what I call. So that the spike that they show there, whether positive or negative, and it sort of outshines the work they did in the April, May, June quarter, few months back, that doesn't get noticed as much. Does that happen?
So there is definitely a possibility of that happening. What we've done to mitigate that is we do a quarterly documentation of the assessment. So there is a self-assessment every employee fills up every quarter, and the manager assessment also gets filled up, and all of these are documented and recorded in the system. Wow. So that at the end of the year, the manager can actually look back at the entire year's performance and then take decisions.
So even if people after working at Udhyam, they do MBA, they move into corporate, they're not necessarily like, oh my God, where have I come? It's still very corporatized, so to speak. Very interesting. But over the years, is there anything that stands out as an anecdote or something that you like to tell people, especially to inspire them to take up this as a career? Like you saw something happen right in front of your eyes, like we did this and then see this happen. What do you narrate to younger kids, like people who are just out of college, to motivate them to take up this as a career?
See, at the end of the day, taking up non-profit as a career is actually making an internal choice between head and heart. Right? And what I mean here is because the money factor in non-profit, we know is cannot match the corporate world as you grow into larger roles.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a choice that one has to make between head and heart. I think finally what we get at the end of it is when you talk to, like in our case, when we talk to entrepreneurs, talk to an Istriwala who's shifted to LPG, or talk to rural entrepreneurs who are earning more, just the amount of gratitude they have in terms of the impact that these interventions have had on their lives. And I think in most cases, it's not that what we are doing is rocket science.
Yeah.
Right? It is the fact that, okay, there is someone there to back them, someone there to trust them, and their life changes. That matters a lot to them. And so when we hear back stories from the ground, like for example, when I go on field visits and when I hear the gratitude, that is extremely satisfying.
Yeah. I mean, somebody is probably able to put their children through to college, or somebody is able to buy another or build a proper pakka house because of all these things. These are real impact aspects, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And in like, for example, in rural, 5,000 rupee income becoming 7 or 8,000 is huge. It's large for them. It's a large change for them.
Great. Now, one question I've been given by my wife to ask you, because you work with these Istriwalas, which is the best dry cleaner in Bengaluru?
Oh man.
So she thinks that because you probably know every Istriwala in and around Indiranagar at least, or larger Bengaluru area. The point is that, have you seen people grow into going from street vendors to actual formal setup with proper, equipment and everything, So there, have you seen growth happening, or do you see that happening as a purpose of what you're doing? Like Istri who now has realized that they can do a lot more, 30% increase in income. Now they realize they don't have to be chained to just one aspect of their work, but they can expand into becoming what we know as a dry cleaning. Dry cleaner is just is a name that I'm giving to a place which is obvious growth for an Istri
So this question has been asked by many people, right? So thankfully,
so whom do you recommend?
I'm more prepared with an answer for this question.
Yeah.
I think a lot of this emerges from the core DNA of Udhyam, which is creating impact at national scale, right? So definitely we want to create impact, but how far do we want to take that impact is a choice we have to make at times. For example, with Istri 15,000 income growing to 19,000. Now, how do you scale this nationally? Is that important for us? Or how do we take 15,000 to 50,000 and put efforts there?
Right.
Is that important for us? So the choice we've made, again, given the core DNA, is that the scaling the impact is far more important for us than going further in depth.
Makes sense. No, lovely. So still no recommendation for a dry cleaner.
I think that's out of syllabus. Please tell her that question is out of syllabus.
No, good. No, brilliant, dear Krishnan. I must say how proud I am of you being my batchmate and the kind of work that you're doing.
Thank you.
This is such a brilliant things that you've told today, and I'm really impressed by what you've done and what your colleagues are doing. So thank you so much for taking the time out today. And is there anything else that you want to add, or we can end this? So I'm just saying it. Is there anything else that you want to speak?
Maybe there is one thing that comes to mind, which I want to close this with. I think for me, what's been most gratifying, so something that I have consciously stayed away from over the last 8 years, is even talking to friends and other batchmates or even relatives about the work we do at Udhyam. Right? Because there's always been this fear that, okay, this guy is talking about non-profit work, the next thing he will do is ask for money.
Yeah.
Right. So that fear actually held me back from speaking. And in the last couple of years, it has been extremely gratifying to see a couple of close friends actually reach out to me and say, hey, you seem to be doing great work. We want to contribute to this organization. That has been very, very fulfilling and gratifying.
That's an ultimate, not an ultimate, that's a very good validation of what you're doing. Fantastic. Let's hope that your tribe grows. Thank you so much. And of course, people, if anyone watching wants to get in touch, you can always go to their website. Just Google Udhyam Learning Foundation. If you want to come over here, then it's in Ulsur, Bengaluru, where you can meet them.
And thank you very much for having me here. And it means a lot for me and for the organization. And I can clearly see, basis the conversations we had even before starting this, that this is a service that you're doing. Right. So hats off to that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Happy to help you with bringing your story forward. Let's hope that more people get interested in what you're doing.
Thank you, Ram. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for more. That was the thing with this one is with Udhyam Learning Foundation. Thank you.